Hi, I'm Kat and today we're going to show you how to plant seeds both in punnets and also in the ground. So the first thing that you have to decide is whether to plant your seeds in the ground or in a punnet. Now there are certain advantages to both methods. For one, if you've got very small seeds like these lettuce seeds that we'll be planting today, it can be really difficult to manage the moisture and the temperature correctly and also protect them from pests. So punnets can give you a real advantage. Punnets are also great because you can stack crops in time by having the seeds planted in punnets about 6 to 8 weeks before they need to go in the ground, therefore allowing you to keep crops growing still in the bed at the same time. Larger seeds like these broad beans are much stronger and likely to resist pests if they're planted directly in the ground. We also have lots of plants that are root crops like this carrot, and your chances of getting a straight carrot are very small if you plant them in a punnet. So carrots and other root crops are often best planted directly in the bed. These punnet trays you can reuse from previous seedlings that you've purchased, or lots of good nurseries have pot recycling bins that you can rescue them from. The next question that you'll have is what to fill your punnets with, and in this bucket I've got some commercial seed raising mix. Now, lots of home gardeners have really disappointing results with this stuff. It has excellent drainage, but it also has very little nutrient. What can happen in a home garden is you fill your punnet up with commercial seed raising mix and it dries out incredibly quickly, and your seedlings also become very nutrient starved because it contains so little nutrient. So you can use this stuff, but it's also well worth experimenting with your own soil to see how it goes for raising seedlings. So here I've got some of my own veggie garden soil. If your soil is healthy and you've been growing veggies in it for a while, it might be excellent seed raising soil as well. If your soil is a little bit clayey, then you can try adding some sand, which will improve the drainage, and that's very important for raising seeds. If you can learn to use your own soil for seed raising, that's great because we can avoid the expense and also the environmental impact of buying seed raising mix that always comes packaged in plastic. Whether you're using your own soil or commercial seed raising mix, I highly recommend adding about 1/4 to 1/3 worm castings or other compost to increase both the nutrient and the water holding capacity. And this will stop the seedlings from drying out so quickly and also help them stay strong and healthy until the time comes to plant them in the beds. Of course, if you're adding worm castings or compost to your seed raising mix, you are also potentially introducing some pests and also some weed seeds. So you will need to keep an eye on those seedlings when they first are planted, and particularly check them at night to make sure there's no pests roaming across the punnets. The first step when you're planting in punnets is to fill your punnet up. I usually level it across the top and then press it down gently with my fingers. The next step when raising seeds in punnets is to make some small indentations in the surface to plant your seeds. Now, the golden rule of planting seeds is that we plant them no deeper than twice the width of each seed. So as you can see for these lettuce seeds here, the holes or the indentations are going to be really small. If we plant the seeds too deeply, the seeds just won't have enough strength to make it up to the surface and put out their leaves, which are like their solar panels. So I'm going to make some very small indentations in the surface of the punnet. Putting seeds in these places only is also going to help if you do have any weed seeds in your mix. It will help you tell which ones are the seeds that you've planted and which ones are the weeds that you'll need to pinch out. When you're ready to plant, we're going to take our seeds and aim for about 2 or 3 seeds in every hole. If your seeds are smaller, or you know they're likely to be a bit weaker because they're older seeds, then sow a few more to make sure that you get some coming up in each hole. So to cover your seeds, you can either slowly pinch the seed raising mix back over the top of them and pat it down with your fingers, or you could sprinkle a little bit of seed raising mix on top for the same effect. And of course, it's very important to label your seeds because you'll never remember in a few weeks' time which lettuce you planted in which punnet. I'm using these pieces of old Venetian blind, which we found on the side of the road. These are fantastic, they last a very long time and they fit in this slot here on the side of seed raising punnets just perfectly. The last step in planting your seeds is to make sure that they're nice and moist. Now, you can have fancy sprayers or drip irrigation setups, but in the home garden I found that using a recycled plastic water bottle with some little holes that I've used a hot pin to make in the lid is the perfect pressure so you can water your seedlings without blasting those little seeds out of the punnet. So at this stage we can't just walk away. These seeds are going to need our care if they're going to grow strongly. We need to first of all make sure that they stay really moist without being soggy. So make sure that you water your seeds at least once a day, especially when it's hot, sometimes twice a day during heat waves. In cold weather, you might like to help your seeds stay a little bit warmer by putting them in a warm microclimate. Some people use the top of a gas hot water service. Some people will bring them indoors at night and then put them outdoors during the daytime to catch the sun. Or some people will make a little greenhouse at home. While the seedlings are small, they're of course very vulnerable to pests. So make sure you do a patrol, especially at night, to make sure that there's nothing eating your baby seedlings. One of the warning signs for your seeds is if they come up and the stems are very stretched and they also start to lean to one side. These are classic signs that they're not getting enough sunshine and you need to move them to a brighter position. If you added some worm castings or compost to your seed raising mix, then you'll also need to check where the weed seeds are coming up and thin them out. Use the planting pattern that you sowed your seeds in and remove everything else that aren't in those holes. Your seedlings will be ready to plant in about 6 weeks. Usually I plant mine out when they're about the same height as the punnet I've sown seeds in. If you're planting in the ground, you just need to check the spacing of your seeds to make sure that they'll have enough space when they grow to full size. And then remember the golden rule of thumb, which is to bury them no deeper than twice the width of the seed. So these broad bean seeds, which are quite large, I'm going to plant them quite deeply. For really small seeds like carrots, sometimes it's helpful to make a furrow with the handle of your rake so that you've got a nice shallow depression to plant them into. Now these carrot seeds are really tiny and we're planting them straight into the bed. I know some of them aren't going to survive, so I'm going to plant them quite thickly and then thin them out later when they've grown a few centimetres high. Firm the ground down well so the soil is in close contact with the seeds and they'll stay nice and moist. For seeds like carrots that are very small and therefore planted close to the surface, some people find it easier to put a woolen blanket or an old wooden plank over the top of the seeds until they germinate. The woolen blanket or the plank helps to maintain consistent moisture and also a more stable temperature so they don't dry out in the sun before the seeds have a chance to grow. The other advantage of having a woolen blanket over your seeds is you can water them without displacing them. Thanks very much for watching. For more sustainable gardening videos, head to www.mysmartgarden.org.au.